Cool. So yeah, welcome. So this talk will be on container scanning with Azure Container Registry and using GitHub actions to sort of instantiate that workflow. My name's Brad. I'm a lead platform engineer at Azenix. There's my email and my blog link. Yeah, so I suppose let's get cracking. So yeah, getting started, you for your shopping list, you need an Azure subscription, a GitHub repo, some CLI tools, and a dodgy Docker image. Because if we've got good Docker images, nothing will get scanned, and I'll have a really poor demonstration. So to get started, we need to enable Azure Container Registry, and I like to do things via the command line, but you can do it via the console. So to get that going, and I will be copying and pasting to avoid typos. So what we're doing here, we're creating a resource group. So resource groups are essentially containers in which you put your objects in, your resources that you have in Azure. And in this case, we're going to be sticking just move that out of the way, a container registry in there. So I'm using the Azure CLI to do this. And I prefer the Azure CLI over, say, PowerShell, mainly because it's more Linuxy, I guess, in the way it sort of flows and the way that you form your commands. And as you can see, that was actually really quickly built. So we can actually have a look on our container registries, and touch wood, there'll be one showing up soon. It does take a couple of minutes, but another way we can always verify is to use, because the portal does tend to take a few minutes to catch up. So we can always list our objects. So we definitely have one in there. We're just waiting for the portal to actually, there we go, to catch up. So if you're executing commands in the CLI and sort of wondering why stuff is not showing up, just give it a couple of minutes. So that's our container registry ready and set up at a very basic level. So what we want to do now is create a service principal. So instead of as a human interacting with the pipelines, which we can't really do, we want our GitHub actions to be doing that. We need to create a service principal. So the service principal will act on our behalf. So what I'll do, I will try not to share my subscription ID, but you're probably able to see that anyway. And what we'll do, we will give this service principal contributor access, which is kind of like God mode without being able to add other gods. And it was also scoped to this resource group. So I'm not going to be able to use this service principal to do anything outside of this resource group. So we're locking it down. So what we want to do now, we will give this particular service principal the ability to push images. Assignee. Client ID. We want to limit its scope again. Make sure that's, and we're limiting its scope to just the container registry that we created previously. And we're also going to give it this specific role, which gives the ability to push. So there's some predefined roles, and you can tweak those roles, but I don't suggest doing it. So you've got the ability to pull, push. There's an admin role. So at the moment, we're just going to have ACR push, which gives the ability for our GitHub workflow to push images up to our registry. Cool. And you'll find that whenever you're executing an Azure CLI command, you'll always get this feedback in JSON. And there's ways that you can manipulate that. So you're probably all better at jQuery than I am. But yeah, you can feed that into a jQuery, which will extract objects and put them into variables. So if you're wanting to run this as a full-blown initiation script, really easy to do. So now that we've created our service principal, I can actually show you that exists. App registrations and all applications. And here's this RadLab ACR service principal that was created a couple of minutes ago. So what we do now, we need to, within GitHub, we need to save our client ID and our secret somewhere. So the way that we do that is upload them as encrypted secrets. So they're stored in our repo as an encrypted secret. Once they're up there, you can't view them again. You have to replace them. So what we'll do, we will set. I'll do it the easy way and use the copy paste method. So paste our secret, and that was client ID. Client secret's the next one. Secret. Cool. So what we need to do now, there's I've got a link here. I might as well jump into this one. So actually, no, I'll put this here. I don't know what reason I put that there. It should be further down in the demonstration. So I might come back to it. What we need to do now is switch on the actual container scanning inside of Security Center. So Security Center comes default in all Azure subscriptions, but the upgraded, the paid version called Azure Defender needs to be switched on for particular objects that you want to have that enhanced security scanning. So there's two SKUs, basically basic and standard, or is it free and standard? To get it to work, you need to switch on standard. So pricing, standard. And Microsoft loves to throw in its preview commands, and we can also, just to prove that that went in, yeah, so it's got an object ID, pricing tier of standard. So next, we want to be able to integrate our GitHub repo into the Security Center. So to do that, we need some authentication tokens. And they exist inside of the portal, and we can, to date, there isn't actually a way to do this programmatically. So let's look here. hopefully it wants to behave. No, because I put in subscription ID, that's not going to make too much sense. Cool. So we've got in underneath the settings of our security center, come into licensing settings, go into our subscription, and that's the shortcut. You can also see that Azure Defender is now switched on. But what we want to do now is configure our CI/CD integrations. And funnily enough, we only have two regions, West Europe and West US. It hasn't proven to cause any breakages to date, but I'm sure it will with something further down the track. It's only just come out of preview, probably about a month ago. So it's probably still a little bit soft around the edges, I suppose. So what we want to do now is copy these authentication tokens, the authentication token and the connection string up to our GitHub repo. So again, we use a GitHub secret set and copy. Next one. Cool. And the other thing we can always do. So this is another reason why I like some of these CLI tools, is that you can always do a show or a list for any of the commands that you initiate. So we do a list. I use list if you don't know the resource that you're looking for, and show if you want to look into a specific resource that you actually know the name of. So what we can do, I'll also show you that. Is this too small? I might zoom it in. Secrets. So we can see that these have recently been uploaded. So how we use these secrets, we can call them using GitHub Actions with the secrets full stop and then the actual string name of the secret. So we have, I have a CI/CD file that it's called demo, and on every time I push, it will set the registry name to BradLab, the app name to demo. It runs on a Ubuntu box. It will then check out the code. It will then log into the Azure Container Registry using the secrets that I uploaded and any environment variables that I've called up the top. If you want to have that as a secret, you can. You just do it the same way that you did previously. I don't see registry name as necessarily being a secret thing. We then build our Docker image. I've used the Tailwind Traders website because it was one of the few Docker images I could find quickly that was actually broken. It had some CVEs in it. We then scan the local image using the Azure Container Scan. And then we push that image up to ACR. we then post those logs up into Azure Security Center. So what I will do, I will and I realize pushing directly to main is sort of a bit ironic that I'm talking about security and pushing directly to main. What I can do now is jump back into our actions. And we can see that that is now running. Now, this takes about 5 minutes to build and do its thing. So I sort of wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about some of the other baked in security features. And this is a free account. So there's nothing paid for here in terms of features. So if you jump into security, we can set a security policy, advisories, enable Dependabot. I know that there's opinions around how good Dependabot is, and we can also set up code scanning. So we can drop that in, and a lot of them are handy out of the box. So if you've got a preferred one, you can basically just click, set up this workflow, punch in some variables. This one's running 3 days a week. And basically, yeah, these are sort of baked in out of the box code scanning tools that are available and can be configured to fit into your pipeline testing. And again, they're free. They just come as part of the package. That's that. Actions. So as you can see, it's taking a little while to drill in. Container registry. So there's a few little gotchas with the container registry. Things like if you click on the security, it goes and then tells you to go off to Security Center to get more information. So I find some of those things are a little bit clunky. We can see that the Azure Defender for container registries is switched on. We can jump into recommendations. And we can see down the bottom, out of the box, we've got sort of toggles that we can switch off and on. So if Azure Defender for DNS should be enabled, in which case it is. I think I cheated earlier and turned on a whole heap of best practices policies. So this is sort of all been sort of green ticked, but you can actually come in here and work through some of the errors that sort of pop up. Yeah, 3 minutes.
Brad, do you mind if I ad-lib something in there just while
Absolutely.
you're waiting?
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I'll turn my mic. sorry, I was eating dinner, so I turned my video off. I just recently came across the Security Center as well, and
Yep.
as a small startup as well, where it's basically just me actually at the moment looking after all of those things, and it's absolutely brilliant at just going in there, going into recommendations. And it just tells you all the things that you should be doing, could be doing within each of your services, whether it's your web apps running on app services or your databases. It recommends the way you've got your users set up in your databases, for example. So it's a really great way to get a lot of improved security across all of your services really easily. And if something doesn't apply to you, you can also set it to say, no, look, that's fine. That's a new baseline for me. That doesn't apply to us, or we'll never do that because policies. So yeah, just definitely worth jumping into even at that level as well.
Yeah. So this is probably my favorite, is this regulatory compliance. So out of the box, there's a whole bunch of, we've got SOX, we've got PCI, DSS, ISO 27000, the Azure Security Benchmark. So that's probably Microsoft's personal setup. And it will actually tell you whether your environment is compliant with those benchmarks. So you can effectively take this as a report and say, for your security audit, and say, all right, our environment is compliant with this particular, auditing body. So we can say that, yep, we're PCI DSS compliant. Take that to APRA and say, yep, cool. And it does this on the fly. It does it continually. So if you get resources that pop up that aren't actually compliant, it will detect that, and it will actually tell you that you're now non-compliant because these resources are here. So that's out of the box stuff. You can get really granular by jumping into the security policy. And actually creating your own. You can add more standards, create custom initiatives. So if you've got specific requirements, you can certainly do that. And here we go. Yeah, as you're saying, Bron, you can actually switch off policies. So if they're not beneficial or sort of impact your particular workflow, you can actually switch them off. Or even if there's a bug. So we'll probably see that there's going to be a CVE coming in. So sometimes it might actually flag that, and you can actually say, no, we're going to run at risk and actually have this CVE in production. So let me just, cool, we're pushing. So built the Docker image successfully. Now this is probably the most important part. So scan the local image for vulnerabilities. It's going to click past me because it's still running. So it will actually give you a report on the specific CVEs that have been discovered inside of the Docker image. It can give you, and it tell you which specific image, the hash, the actual package, and so you can go back and be proactive and actually fix it up before security come knocking on your door. I did actually, in this particular workflow, tell it to continue on error. So if it finds CVEs, it will actually error, and it actually block it from being pushed. But obviously, I needed to turn it on for the purposes of demonstration. So that's quite a handy thing to actually have. And you can view these from the CLI as well, if that's your preferred sort of method. But what we'll do, we'll jump back, and hopefully, because this actually took a few minutes when I did my test, was to actually go in and see what recommendations it's got for us. So we go into Azure Defender, and we can see vulnerabilities. And it took a few minutes to actually do this. And I remember having to log out and back in again for it to pick up. So sign out, back in again. Cool. Let's go back. Azure Defender is on. The scanning one container registry, that is on. Go back to Security Center, Azure Defender. Here we go, one unhealthy registry, and here we go. We can actually see that the image that we've got, affected resources. So we can drill into this and actually see a digest of the specific information around the image that's been scanned. So yeah, that's essentially a very quick tour of oh, here we go, and the actual resource itself. So yeah, that's a pretty high level
Bill's just asked, how much does this cost in a production environment? Which
yes.
parts of this might cost and suddenly cost unexpected
cool.
amounts?
So what it will actually do, where did I find you? Right there, Azure Defender. I did actually have it, and it's in the dollars per image. I'm trying to find it now. Overview. I'll tell you what. I'll keep hunting, and I'll post it up in the chat. I'll find it. The exact costings.
But we're not talking about hundreds of dollars in, from what you just said.
No. Yeah. Look, if you're scanning thousands and thousands of images, then you're probably at a size of company where you could afford to pay a few $100s for your container scanning. So
yeah, the value seems to be good return. Yeah.
Yeah.